Hey everyone, welcome and thanks for joining. Sorry for the long pause between shows, but I've actually been enjoying my retirement and traveling and taking it easy and, taking care of my health for once, which is a whole new thing for me. But anyways, I really appreciate everybody taking the time. And just as a fair warning before we start this show, totally unscripted. It's going to be a very intense conversation between myself and estabonski. And so if we offend anyone in the process, I'll apologize now. But thank you all for joining. I really appreciate it. My newfound love is actually I've become the new sauna boss. I really enjoy, like a little bit of a public service announcement on health. There's nothing like being in a sauna for 20, 25 minutes and jumping in a cold pool. That is like the most invigorating thing. If you haven't done it, do it. It's amazing. And so with that, let me bring on today's guest, my friend who I've known for a long time, the one and only Esteban-Kolsky, who, by the way, I must say, he's in a car.
Yeah.
He's not homeless.
No, California spring is weird. I was trying to cross the mountain and they shut down the freaking place because of a snowstorm. I tried to go into a hotel to rent a room to do the show, and they said they didn't have any room. So here I am.
What dedication? What can I say?
Hey,
it's amazing.
I have always said I'll do anything for you, my friend. So
hey, I appreciate it. Hey, so why don't we start with let's start with I think one of the topics that is really starting to really open up a lot is about tech monopolies. Especially here in Europe where I am, it's becoming big, right? Google's facing it, Facebook's facing it, right? In the US at home, there's a lot of talk about Facebook, Google, right? All these companies are sort of in this stage where they're semi being looked at as being tech monopolies. And I think, it's sort of interesting because, it's all started years ago with Microsoft.
Yep.
And you have to wonder, like, what's the big deal? You spend a lot of money, you develop a lot of tech, you become the leader in something, and then all of a sudden somebody wants to put a label on you and say, hey, you're a monopoly, now you need to break it apart.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on it?
Well, so two parts to it. Don't forget also that Apple recently got sued by the 30 states and the Department of Justice over monopolistic practices, right? Or Department of Commerce, I can't remember which one it was. But there's two things about it. I agree with you. If you're going to invest the money and make it work, there's no reason why you shouldn't cash on it. I mean, this is exactly how the tech industry always operated, right? I mean, like you said, Microsoft owned the desktop. Amazon on the cloud for a while until they kind of faltered quite a bit, but now they're reinvesting. I read this morning they're investing like $150 billion over the next 10 years to try to stem off, push from Google and Microsoft. I think that we're really going to believe in a free market society. It should be a free market society. Whoever puts the money makes the money. I don't have a problem with that. Having said that, the two things that are caveats to that. One, and I don't believe this, but everybody keeps saying, is there, if you have a monopoly, you can eliminate competition? I don't think so. I think that the competition doesn't figure how to play. Why would they should exist? That's usually the main argument against monopolies. Well, there's no competition. It's bad for consumers. It's bad for businesses. There's no price diversity or something like that. I still think that if you're going to make the investment and do something right, then cash in on it. Now, the second part of that is like, the part that I a little bit for the enterprise get concerned about is the part of the lock-ins, right? More than anything else. Once you get into a locked-in situation, then that's really hard to get out. It's not a question of monopolistic situations. It's a question of getting locked in and not being able to excel at other areas. That's my main concern on the tech monopolies, right?
Well, from a consumer standpoint, though, let's take Apple as an example, right? God knows I've fucking invested so much money in iTunes over the years, buying movies, buying music, right? Now, if I pass away tomorrow,
Yeah.
digital library goes back to Apple.
Well, that's because you didn't plan properly, dude. If you would have planned properly, the company could take your digital library and like move it to some other Apple
But I
IP
mean, it's
account.
just an example of where a
Yeah,
monopoly, right?
yeah,
You pay for this stuff.
yeah,
No different than if you were to go buy a CD or a
yeah.
DVD, right? Or a regular record, right? I mean, you're paying for this stuff and you're paying a premium price for this stuff at the end of the day,
But,
right?
but but let me ask you a question to that. I mean, are you paying for ownership of the stuff, or are you paying for access to this stuff? Because that's a huge difference there,
Well,
right?
in this case, you're actually paying to own the stuff. So if I buy a movie on iTunes for $25, which
Yeah,
my wife tells me I'm always stupid for doing it, which
it's okay. Rounders
and
is a good movie. Everybody should watch it at least once.
and my older daughter always says, "Why do you pay for anything? You can get it for free on the internet."
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But look, you pay money for the stuff. You pay money for an album on iTunes, but you're more or less leasing it at the end of the day because you really
are.
don't own that digital library.
Well, that's what I said. What you're buying is not the actual access to the movie or ownership of the movie. You're buying a license, a digital license to watch the movie as many times as you want. And
Yeah,
the
but
license,
when you say you're buying it versus renting it, when you say buy,
you
which
can watch
they
it more than
actually
once.
say buy,
Yeah,
the assumption is it's yours now and you own it.
it is.
But it's
As
not the
long
case.
as no, that is the case. Come on. The difference is once it's digital, you cannot own digital. Well, what are you going to do? Own a bunch
But
of
let's
ones
give
and
an
zeros?
example. If I go and I say, why can't you own a digital asset? Yes, you can own digital assets.
You can actually own a license to digital asset, but not the digital asset
But I
itself.
should be able to take that digital asset and move it with me. So if I want to kill my iTunes account and say I want to take all the stuff I've bought on iTunes with me,
Yeah.
I should be able to do that at the end of the day. I shouldn't have to give it back to Apple if I want to, get rid of my Apple account, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Apple's a good example of a monopoly that I think really has to at some juncture, right? Because they're the digital powerhouse at the end of the day.
But let me ask you a question. If you want to take it away from Apple, where are you going to put it?
I don't know. Maybe I want to put it on a server at my own house or put it in my own private cloud
But
somewhere.
you never bought it. You only bought is a right to access it.
No, because I bought it. It says you're buying the movie. You're buying the album at the end of the day, right?
I mean, so this is one of those things where we can go into going through the terms of service and the license and actually no, the NFT.
See,
you don't
and
own
like
it.
an NFT, right? It should
You
be
don't own
almost
it.
like an NFT.
You own
I
the
agree with
right to
Verlin.
access. You own the right to access. You don't own the actual digital asset. You cannot own a digital asset because if you own it, nobody else has access to it. End of the story forever. So if you're buying a movie, you
No,
buy the
that's
right
not
to
true
access
because
the movie.
look, it's not true, right? Because everybody can have access to it. You should be able to make a copy of it. If you own a license for it, I should be able to have a copy that I can keep on my own personal server at the end of the day if I want to. Right?
So here's two startups, two startup ideas. One, take your Apple digital library and make a copy into your server at home for everything that you own access to. And two, take your Apple digital library and moving to Prime Video, whatever, Amazon or whatever else, whoever else has access, gives you access to that. That's a startup. That's the market, determining that there's a way to go around it.
Yeah, I just think, and then, look, and everybody says Facebook is also a monopoly, right? Because they own more or less the social contact, right? Because of all the properties they own besides Facebook, right? WhatsApp, Instagram.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, do they have a monopoly? Nah, maybe. Right. But nobody forces anybody to use those things at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Hey, if a policeman knocks on your door, let me know, okay? Because
well, you again, this is the part that kills me. people are arguing. So let's take this to the enterprise. When you buy Siebel, Microsoft, SAP, Salesforce, or SAP software to follow your illustrious career, you're not actually buying the software. You're buying access to the digital right to access the software and whatever it's located. Blah 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 blah. It's the same thing when you go into like a digital world. Things change. You're not buying the movie. You're not buying the CD. You're buying access to it.
You're right. I mean, look, if you buy enterprise software in the cloud, you don't own it. You're basically leasing it at the end of the day, right?
That's right.
You're leasing your version of it, right? That's it. But it's a little different from consumer world where, when it says buy, you assume that it belongs to you at the end of the day.
Yeah, right? But you shouldn't assume things. You know why?
Yeah, I know. You should never assume. I know. But look, on another topic, let's talk about the whole TikTok thing, right? Because this really fascinates
me. Do we have to? Seriously, we have to?
We have to because, it fascinates me that look, TikTok for me is no different than YouTube at the end of the day. They're both addictive. They both have, very similar qualities at the end of the day.
Yeah.
TikTok, I would say the content is, there's more content, different type of content. But there are a lot of similarities. Look, YouTube had a lot of that nasty content on it too, right? I mean, and so
it still does. They still do.
So our illustrious government decides to pass a bill to ban TikTok. But I always wonder, why aren't they passing a bill to ban YouTube at the end of the day?
Because it's not owned by the Chinese company that is spying on American hard-earned dollars.
I really, that's where you have to come and say, is that really true? Right? Look,
no,
or does it really come down to the fact that TikTok is kicking YouTube's ass at the end of the day? And then
that's what it comes down to, in my opinion. I agree with you there.
That's what I think, right? Yeah. I really do think that this is, this is where it's happening, right? It's not about, it's more about, you have a foreign country who develops something and all of a sudden, after it's been on the market here for how many years now? It's been around. All of a sudden, it's evil. It's no good. We need to get rid of it.
The fascinating thing about it is you have Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, Facebook, I think it's called Stories, and TikTok, and they're all the same, right? They're all basically the same. The videos that you see on TikTok, you see on YouTube Shorts with the TikTok watermark even. So it's not
by the way, that doesn't account for all the underground video channels that are out there as well, right?
Yeah,
but there's lots of those too, right?
Yeah. But I agree with you.
Any teenager, right? They can point you to all those things, right?
So then TikTok, then it's just a political play, right? Is that what you're saying?
I really think it's a political play at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And it's forcing, what they're trying to do is force TikTok to sell their interest to a U.S. company.
But I mean, didn't former President Trump do that during his first and only presidency?
Sure, he's
Yeah, no, we're not gonna talk about underground videos, dude. This is not the show for that.
No, I'm just talking about like out there on the web. There's all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if you're going to go after one, then you might as well go after all of them at the end of the day. I
agree, but then here's the problem. The reason TikTok gained predominance in the marketplace is because Facebook and Instagram and all those guys, they were not made for the ADHD people. TikTok is ADHD. It's like social network for the ADHD masses, right? Like I cannot tell you. I mean, after watching like an hour of TikTok or YouTube Shorts, my attention span is down to like half a second at best. So it's not the best time to ask me for anything.
It's like those. It's like the Facebook Reels, right? You click on one, and then you keep flipping, flipping. Right? It is in some ways, I think, for people addictive, right? Because you really have to monitor yourself and control the amount of time you spend on watching those videos at the end of the day. Now, on the flip side of that, I have to say, I've become a lot smarter because of videos, like YouTube videos, TikTok videos, right? Like self-help stuff, right? Like the other day, I couldn't figure out how to turn the heat up on my sauna, right? What do? Well, guess what? There's a 30-second TikTok video that describes it pretty well, right?
Yeah.
And so, there is some value to this stuff at the end of the day. It's not all evil, right?
But again, the problem is like, I think that the question that
the problem is parents should monitor their kids as well.
Well, yeah, they don't.
At the end of the
And
day.
actually, if you go by behavioral psychology, we should disable everything that's 1 minute in length, because it like ruins the attention span, ruins your ability to function and everything else. But the problem here is like, I don't think that the problem is like TikTok as a network. That's just a political cheap play to try to get some cheap play from that. I think that the problem is like, the quality of the content. And I agree with you. I learned to do a lot of things, right? Funny. I learned to do a lot of things from YouTube. I learned to do a lot of things from like non-YouTube things, like the Khan Academy. Things like the Khan Academy and so forth. I learned a lot of things online. The problem is the content. I mean, what we should do is, if you really want to restrict something, restrict the content quality and the content that is being distributed. I mean,
well, I think that's the biggest problem, is how do you restrict right? This comes back to the whole, how do you monitor these things? No different than how do you monitor the hate speech that's out there on even LinkedIn now, right? LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere. You have hate speech everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And the ability to stop that is, I think it's totally out of control. I don't think anybody has control over it anymore.
Did we ever have control over it though?
No, but I think it's gotten worse. And I think, and if you look at, it's all over, right? X, even Instagram, you can go LinkedIn, right? I just think we've got to figure out something, but just saying, okay, now we're going to pass a law and ban one, instead of dealing with the real issue, which is, how do you control the content at the end of the day? And my other thing is, nowadays I'm sort of becoming paranoid about fucking face recognition, because like everywhere you go nowadays, is face recognition. And the reality is so what happens when they start hacking those databases with the face recognition?
Well, wait, right? When do you say, what happens when it's already
probably already happening, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
I agree, but here's the thing: you live in a place where face recognition is more predominant than here in the U.S. In the U.S., if it exists, it's pretty much hidden, because as opposed to places like Australia or even Europe, where like you have to actually make it be known that you're actually using face recognition.
Yeah, but there is face recognition everywhere, right? You go into any building that has CCTV in it. You go into now, you go to an ATM, right? You think the bank isn't using some form of face recognition?
Yeah, they use face recognition at the checkout stands at the grocery store here.
That's
now.
right.
You go to Whole Foods and they do use face recognition. They seriously, Amazon actually wanted to implement face recognition as a payment at the checkout at Whole Foods, and then they decided not to do it because it'd be too creepy. And I'm like, that's beyond too creepy, dude.
I mean, look at the last time I flew from San Francisco last month back to Germany, boarding the plane was all done by face recognition, right?
Yeah.
By an airline.
Yeah.
Which I don't trust at all.
By the way, which has no clearly published or distinguished policies on what they do with the information.
That's right.
Which is my biggest problem. My problem is like face recognition, if it were to be independent from storage, I guess it could be okay. I mean, if you have a secure process by which the airline captures your face, and then they like run it against a secure server where like they get a validation, yes, no, and that's it, I'd be less concerned about it. But face recognition where like, Whole Foods or Amazon stores my face forever in a database, I don't like that. That doesn't work for me.
No, and it's the same way with your phone, right? I really like. I used to have Google Home. I used to have Alexa. I've gotten rid of all those things because I actually truly believe they are always on, always listening,
Yes.
always monitoring. I don't give a shit what anybody says. I actually believe those devices, and actually had an incident happen where I don't have Siri turned on anywhere in my not on my iPhone, not on my iWatch. But I'm sitting there the other day having a discussion with my 4-year-old, and all of a sudden Siri pops up and says, "Well, I could find that for you." And I'm like,
but they're not listening. It's just coincidence.
There's no coincidence. They're plus you see these things pop up, recommendations, right? Saying, oh, where's that coming from at the end of the day? Because they're constantly monitoring, listening to everything that you're
Bob,
doing.
It's only done so that we can provide you a tailored experience around the internet. We want to make sure that you're comfortable enough so you never leave the internet. It's going to be tailored for you. I mean, privacy, Scott McNeely said it, in like 1999, 98 or whatever. There's no privacy, get over it, right? Or it was maybe early 2000s when he said it. Doesn't matter. The point is, like, there's never been any privacy because we never made it. We made the relinquishing of privacy an inherent pillar in which the commercial internet was built.
But look, this whole issue of privacy, data security around facial recognition, around AI, right? I mean, look, this is look, AI, look, don't get me wrong, and I say this all the time, like I'm a huge fan of AI. The ability, and not just Gen AI, but automation, being able to do things, but I think the privacy concerns and the misuse of as that technology starts to get more and more developed, right? Do you really trust tech companies to use it for the right stuff at the end of the day?
No,
but I'm not sure. By the way,
even before, did you trust tech companies with what they capture about you? I mean, I've been out of Facebook for like 10, 15 years. I don't know. I mean, right shortly after it came up, Facebook emerged. I got out of there because I didn't like the way it was going, right? I mean, I've been on Twitter for like 7, 8 years. And the reason for that is it's not that they're not good tools, that they may or may not be, but it's just that the use of information is what kills me. There's been a meeting. There was a meeting somewhere in 1993 when they said, "Hey, this commercial internet is cool. How are we gonna fund it? Oh, let's steal people's information and fund it with selling marketing ads back to them." Versus saying like, let's charge everybody $10 a month for everything they want to do on the internet, and then we fund the whole thing for free. And that's my problem. It's like everything became about what I know and what I can do with you. And I mean, is my fighting it by not having Siri or a Google Home or whatever? Is my fighting it making a difference? I'm not that stupid. No.
Yeah, but even now, right? You pay like Amazon Prime recently, right? If you want to watch movies on Amazon Prime, now they want to charge you $3 a month so that you don't get ads with your movies, right? Yeah. I mean, it's always something, right? There's always a catch to this stuff, right? But look, I think privacy and security in the age of in ethics around AI, right? Look, we don't have a good track record in tech of ethics, of really guaranteeing privacy, security. Like the track record's not there at the end of the day, right? I mean, no, and look, all you have to do is go out there and like the other day I was searching for a list of breaches, right? And it just amazes me how many breaches alone in the US there have been on privacy and security, right? And now you start to think of machine learning, automating, less human interaction, right? It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse, right? And
but so let's make it more than two old guys complaining. I mean, do you really think that regulation, compliance, something is possible around this? I mean, not even on a global level, even on a local level, right?
Well, how do you guarantee compliance? How do you guarantee safety, security around AI? I don't think you can at the end of the day. I really think it's going to be so hard, right?
So then we throw in the towel and say we're fucked. There's nothing we can do. Let's try to let's become Mennonites or whatever, and just like
It's
stay away from
time to
technology.
move off the grid, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
time to go back to the old days of
Well,
landline phones,
so
right?
follow that through. I mean, what? Let's say that you do remove yourself from the internet, right? You give everything up, and you don't connect. You don't have a smartphone anymore, or whatever. Is it really that bad, or do you actually get something out of that? Because I'm serious. I would not stop considering if there's
Like
actually a value in
I have to
exchange for
admit, I'm addicted to my phone.
that.
It's as much as I hate to admit it. I mean, I run my whole life on my phone, basically, right? I mean, everything from scheduling, calendar,
Yeah,
right? I mean, and it's more than that, right? It's that ability to get data quickly, right? When you
yeah,
want to know something, right?
yeah, yeah,
In the old days when I was growing up, I mean, you wanted to know something, you had to go to the freaking public library and look it up in a book, right?
yeah,
We don't have that anymore, right? You go to a library nowadays, there's nobody in the library.
yeah,
Libraries sit empty because you can do everything from home, you know?
yeah. And the thing is,
Yeah.
like, for somebody with spectrum issues and ADHD and intellectual curiosity, man, I cannot live without my phone. I mean, I can. I mean, when they go like, oh, when I die, just delete my search list. No, publish it, because it will give a huge insight into, like, what my life has been like.
I'm even so bad that I actually have a satellite phone with data so that if I go into an area where I can't get service,
Yeah,
I can always have access at the end of the day. That's how
yeah,
bad it is, right? We've
yeah,
become this society where it's you. I don't think people can live without phones nowadays with cell phones and
I,
the amount of information that you get. But I mean, look, sometimes I think everybody gets on data overload, right? I mean, that's the problem with the digital world, right? Is that you really, and I think with kids, it's happening, right?
yeah,
I really think kids are in some cases exposed to too much data,
yeah,
and
yeah.
also I think the expectations of kids to be smarter, to be faster learners, to be right. I think we've gone down this path now of not letting kids be kids anymore, right?
So my kids were born in 2000, early 2000s to mid 2000s, before the iPhone came out, right? And when the iPhone came out and the iPad came out, I made a conscious decision that they would need to have access to that, not for entertainment purposes and electronic nanny, but because they needed to understand the technologies and the access and all that, since it was part of, like, their generation, right? But you have a 4-year-old. What is? Do you feel the same way that I did back then, or is your feeling about what these things do differently than it would have been, like, 10, 15 years ago?
Well, the difference is I try to temper it a little bit, right? So it's important that she learns the tech world. I
Yeah,
really do believe that
yeah,
because I think growing up in this day and age, you have to teach kids how to, but it's also balancing that with nature, right? Because we spend a lot of time in nature, out hiking, doing things with animals, right? We have all sorts of, because I think you have to have that balance, right? Limit the amount of time that children actually have exposure to that info, right?
yeah,
Because if you give it too much, and you see this, right? It's amazing. You go to a restaurant and you see a family sitting at the table and they're not talking to each other.
yep, yep.
They're all looking at their phone. Nobody's having a conversation. Nobody's paying attention to anybody,
But
right?
see,
I mean, that's the world we're living in now, right? But as the thing is as AI becomes more and more prevalent, right? Let's just talk about driverless cars, right?
yeah,
It always amazes me when I go to San Francisco or somewhere and I see these taxis driving around, no drivers in them, right? But just imagine, right? What happens when that becomes so efficient that all of a sudden you don't need taxi drivers anymore? There's like 260,000 taxi drivers in the United States alone. Just
Yeah.
imagine what happens. They're all out of work. What do you do with all those people?
Well, what happens? What happens when we don't need truck drivers anymore?
Yeah, when you don't need truck drivers, or if you listen to some of the gurus in the space, sooner or later you won't need people. You won't need tech people. You won't need coders. You won't need
No.
programmers.
Look, come on. We've been
I
trying that
don't
since the
agree with that.
1980s.
Look,
We've
look,
been
I don't
trying.
agree with it,
Yeah.
but look, there is a lot of talk about machines generating code, right? And
Yes.
you have to. I look, there is some merit to that at the end of the day.
There's merit to it, but so my brother decided that he needed to learn more about AI, and he enrolled for a 12-week course in AI, including Python programming, right? And my brother's not a programmer; he's a designer. So for the parts that he needed to actually code, he said, "I'm going to use ChatGPT." He literally copied the assignment to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT spat out the code that he pasted into the thing, and it worked.
No,
So yes,
look,
for that simple
I did an
stuff,
experiment.
sure.
I did an experiment a couple weeks ago. Asked it to write a simple application for SFA.
Yeah.
And it generated the code. Was it 100%? No. But was it probably good enough? Yeah, for a simple SFA application, right? But just imagine 5 years from now where that's going to be at, right?
But how? So what's the difference now from? I mean, we had autocoders in the 90s and the 2000s. I lost track on the 2010s, but we have autocoders. What's the difference between what we had back then and what we have now? I mean, the only difference is like the understanding of the language, so that he can say, "I want an SFA application," and he understands what it entails. Versus back then, that he had to say, develop an application that has a screen to capture customer information, put it into a pipeline application, and then run it forward, right? The difference is how much detail you had to provide, but there's no difference between back and then, and the quality of the code has not improved.
It's
It would never
different,
be
right?
optimized.
I mean, look, the quality of code generators has improved significantly over the decades.
But the quality of the code generated, the quality of the code generated has not improved. It's still standard template shit that needs to be fully optimized and improved.
You're right to an extent, but look, it's all like with the machine. It's all about how good is the code that is actually, who's ever teaching the machine to actually generate the code. How good is that person at the end of the day? How good is the data that's going in there at the end of the day, right? Because look, it still doesn't change. Data in, data out, right? What you put in and what you get out, the inputs and outputs, still the same. If you have shitty inputs, well, you get shitty outputs at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's always been the case, but but I think that the quality of the code is enough to get started. Excuse me. And it may basically replace some of those no-code, low-code applications that exist out there. But still, what you're getting is very simple. I mean, you know as well as I do. You run enterprise applications. You work with Jujar. Jujar did not go and say, "Hey, let's do a simple thing." He took stuff that was complicated and made it optimized to the point that it running sub-second. I don't see a computer doing that anytime soon. The quality of understanding of not just the code, but everything else.
You still need the human element, right? Until the machines get smart enough, right? Right? Until the machines get smart enough. Hey, let's go to a different topic.
Okay.
Let's talk about one of our favorite topics. SAP and CRM.
Oh my God. Hold on. Yes, it's been a year. I can't. Go ahead. I can't say anything about it now.
Look, all the vendors in the space, right? I mean, but you have to wonder, right? Like, what is happening with SAP, right? They go up, they go down. I constantly hear people ask me, well, how do I replace SAP? Should I replace it with Salesforce, right?
No, you can't.
And look, let's give some credit to SAP. Look, the new application that was built for sales and service, which you and I, had a key part in, and Sanjit finished it, and he's still working on it. But that, look, he's done. It's a phenomenal new application.
Absolutely.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
true cloud-based. I mean, he did all the right things architecturally. The problem is, though, it's still very immature, and it will take time to get to a point, right? And so you have to wonder, right? Like, I've always believed that, SAP can't compete against the Salesforce in the way they want to compete.
Yeah.
And I do believe that for them, the only way forward is to figure out how to take that stuff and blend it into S4, and especially sales and service, right? Because, look, you can't compete against the Salesforce.
You can.
When it's not even your core product, right? I mean, look, it's the same with Microsoft. It's the same with Microsoft, right? No different. Right.
But see, that's the difference. So SAP and Microsoft are two diametrically opposed, same idea, same approach, but diametrically opposed strategies for the long term, right? SAP's long term continues to be, we need to service our existing customer base, so everything we develop is around what we have, and to extend that. And that's perfectly fine, because look, you have a company the size of SAP that generates what, $40 billion a year, whatever the number is, and you add 5% to that every year.
I think it's just over 30 billion, actually.
Yeah,
no, I don't think it's 40.
Well, it's euros versus US.
Well, but the problem there is, I think the problem with their CRM is that they just can't stick to a freaking, what makes Salesforce so powerful is their vision has not changed, right? The vision that Mark had continues, right? It's been consistent, right? They're predictable, right? And I think the problem with SAP is they constantly changing their strategy, which confuses their customers. It confuses the market. It confuses the analysts. Analysts don't have, every time I talk to an analyst about it, they say, well, we just sort of gave up. We don't know what they're doing, right? I mean, look, and now they're going down everything. It's like everything is AI. But it's great to put AI into a product. But if you haven't solved the basic issues, it ain't going to help at the end of the day.
But, so here's the thing. The second part to what I was saying, Microsoft, right? Same idea. We on the desktop. Let's try to on the enterprise. Well, shit, that didn't work. So what works? Let's come up with something different. So let's put shit in the cloud. Let's create a Power Platform, low code, no code development. Let's enable people to build their own stuff, and let's bring people to run on our cloud. And basically, Microsoft exited, for the most intent and purpose, the enterprise applications, even though they still exist, because they figure a different way. SAP cannot, because enterprise applications is the only thing they do and they understand. So they're going to continue to enable and build ancillary content for
but
that.
The problem is if you want to compete in this world of CX CRM, it's all about presence in the market, right? You need to have those marketing dollars. You need to spend money. Look, companies. How did Salesforce grow so fast, right? If you take, it was a slow growth up to 2011, I think it was, and then it was an explosion.
It was actually Salesforce 1 was in 2012, and that's basically when they re-architected the core solution, and then they brought in the guy that created the Thunder layout to fix the problems with the core database. And then they could grow. Before there, they couldn't grow. Even if they would have grown, they couldn't have support.
But look, they've grown, but the other thing is their presence in the market.
Yeah.
Right? They're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows Salesforce. Everybody knows what Salesforce does at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
But if you say, what about SAP? What do people say? Oh, yeah, the ERP company.
Yeah.
Right?
They are. And they are.
And they are.
Come on, in Germany, SAP, there's no other company in Germany, in the DACH region even, in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, there's no other company. Even in the peninsula, they own 60% of the accounts for ERP and everything else. And then all they're doing, they're adding stuff to that. It's a good business model.
It's just a good business model, but they're leaving a lot of money on the table, because
of course they are.
Their core customers are look, even, recently I saw this public thing. Look, Daimler has always been a big customer of SAP, but then, recently I saw, Mark Benioff was in Stuttgart, and he was with the CEO of Daimler, and they were celebrating the contract that they had signed, right? And look, I think, you can't afford, right? If you're an SAP, you've got to put effort into this, because tying that front, they are the only ones who, if they did it right, could tie the front and the back together in a seamless way to really make a company hum, right?
I agree, 1,000%.
But it takes a change of mind to do that, right? You have to
internal to the company, not in the market, in the company.
In the company, right?
Yeah.
The company has to think about that, right? They have to be different. Look, I'm a fan of SAP, right? Always, I wouldn't have gone there twice if I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it kills me to watch them flounder in the market, especially with CRM. It just kills me, because they and they have some good people, right? Who definitely know the space, who if I look at people like Sanjeet, right? He's been around, knows the space, knows, a bunch of ex-Siebel guys running around, right? There's even some Salesforce people. I mean, it's not like they don't. It's just, it's really investing, right? You have to invest in CRM to make it successful.
Well, yeah. So I believe that CRM is commoditized. Somebody mentioned earlier that the internet access is commoditized. I believe CRM is commoditized. We're not going to come up with anything new and creative and innovative way to do CRM, right? So it's a question of improving the way you do it.
Is that really true? I don't think so. Actually, I do believe there is a much, I think, given where technology is today.
Yeah.
I actually believe, look, every CRM system out there today is dumb. They are dumb applications, right?
Yes.
It's a pull, not a push. Yeah. You want something out of the system, you got to pull it out of the system at the end.
But that's what being commoditized technology is, right? I mean, basically, it's
but it doesn't have to be like that, because given the technology today, you could do a lot to start building a CRM from the ground up using AI, where everything goes in and out of the machine, right?
Yeah.
Makes the machine smart. Makes the machine. Look, you could do it, right? The problem is, a lot of these big companies, how do you stop doing what you're doing and put effort behind?
Right? See, you can do it, but it requires a different architecture, requires a different data strategy, requires a different partner strategy, requires leveraging things that remove the lock-in from your customers and gives them broader access to things that you cannot do in a better way.
I remember at Siebel, and it always pains me, because I still believe Siebel is the best CRM system that was ever built. Now the UX, that's a whole nother story, but but if you, even at Siebel, right, when we saw that the world was changing, Salesforce was getting stronger, right? They were growing, we started competing, losing deals, right? The cloud was starting to take off. But even for us then, it was hard to make that shift, right? We tried. We put a new program together. Unfortunately, we put the same people who built the first version on the second, on the cloud version. And unfortunately, we needed people with a different mindset back in those days, right? And I do think that's what it's going to take now. Is I think companies are going to have to develop a whole new set of people with a different mindset. How do you approach SFA in a different way? How do you approach service in a different way, right? But look, it can be done. We've been locked into these patterns of how you do SFA, right? Funnel, right?
But
there's got to be a better way than the funnel at the end of the day.
Bob, we need to change everything. Nobody will find a company that doesn't have a lock-in in $1 billion market that can be replaced tomorrow. And what you're talking about, it basically creates an application that could be replaced tomorrow. So you won't get investment to it. Mark always talks about, how he bootstrapped the company and run it. But that's because he figured a way to create a niche market where he could have absolute control of it and grow into it. Otherwise, nobody would have given him any more money, and the money that he bootstrapped into it wouldn't have gone that far. And that's the thing. It's like you can do it. That's great technology, but if you don't figure the way to create a permanence to that technology that investors can feel comfortable with, and this is what Salesforce has done over the last 10, 15 years, then nobody will buy your stock, buy your product, or buy your invest in your company. So you need to change. You need to change the mentality of the investment community, of the architecture community, of the enterprise community, of the purchasing community. You need to change everything to get to what you're talking about. I would love to see that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, one of the reasons I went to SAP
Look,
when
we
was
need to
do that.
start having smart outcome-based systems, right? And
Yes.
and it just doesn't exist today. I mean,
No.
they're just not there. I mean, I can't think of, I've been playing around with a lot of the newer little CRM systems, and I have to say, look, some of the stuff they do and the way they do it is pretty amazing, right? I think a lot of them are on the right path. I think, but it's a hard road, right? If we take the CX space and we say, what is the possibility of taking market share from a Salesforce at this juncture? I would say it's pretty slim, right? It's no different than SAP and ERP, right? I mean, when you get to that point where you have such a dominance, right?
But then create the next generation
That's
solution.
the key. You have to create the next generation, but it can't be a retread of what's already out there. It has to be totally different.
So then what do you do?
The next CX system has to be usage-based and not subscription-based. Has to get rid of the pricing model. The subscription-based pricing models have become no better than perpetual licenses.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It started out as a good thing, subscription, but now it's just as evil as the perpetual license model was at the end of the day, and companies are feeling it, right? They're feeling that.
I think
pinch.
so. I think there's more than that, actually. I think that number one, if you go back, what was it, 50 years, ERP was about optimizing operations, right? If you go back 30 years when Siebel started, CRM was about like optimizing customer engagement. If you're going to do something different, you cannot go back and rewrite ERP or CRM. You have to find a way to do something different. Whatever you want to call it. That is to me the next generation of enterprise applications and where investment and focus should be. It's like, how do we create something that replaces enterprise operations end to end so that you can actually enhance, if you want to, eventually replace, but not right away, ERP and CRM, because they're both commoditized.
They truly are commoditized in this day and age.
Yeah.
But everybody makes money in this space, right? It's a beautiful space to be in at the end of the day. Everybody makes money,
Right. But as we found out over the last 3 years, 4 years, making the change is almost impossible from the inside. This is something that needs to come from the outside.
And do you think a CDP is a critical piece of a new?
I think a CDP is a critical license for vendors that sell CDP so they can make money. But I think that a better model of data architecture and data management that is not a CDP would be a critical piece of going forward. I think that digital is the basis for whatever comes next. But CDP, come on, dude, there's nothing on CDP. You know that.
Like I think CDP, like I've always said, it's a passing thing, right? But what you really need is an intelligent, smart data hub at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
That's and we're not there yet, right? I look at some of the recent stuff, the stuff from Salesforce, and I have to say, oh wow, it's getting close, right? Some of that stuff is okay, right? But we're still not at a point where we have a true intelligent data hub at the end of the day, and that's what we need, right?
But again, so Salesforce is getting close with some of the technologies, but do you really think that they will put the application together that will eventually cannibalize their own existing licenses across 6 of the 14 clouds that they have?
You can't, because how are you going to cannibalize yourself?
That's
to be
right.
the leader in the next generation.
So the change will have to come from the outside.
That Salesforce unseated Siebel, right? Because Siebel wasn't capable of at the time of really being to make a radical switch and move to the cloud. It just wasn't possible at the end of the day, because perpetual licenses, right? Look, if you think about the perpetual license days, I mean, people got those, that was fat, happy times back in those days, right? But, with the cloud trying to make that switch, but it's also the next generation, right? If we talk about the next generation of enterprise applications,
yes,
right? Who's going to be the leader there? I don't think it's any of the players that are there today. I really
actually take a look at the players that exist out there today that could potentially grow into a leader, right? I agree with you. I don't think there's anybody. They're all too big to be able to make that pivot.
That's right.
To go to that model. So I do believe that change will come from the outside. Somebody like you, with somebody like you from the ERP world that understands how to do this, will come up with an idea to put an architecture together. We'll collect, a couple hundred smart architecture and data people. We'll put a model together, and then 3-5 years from now, we have the next generation of enterprise solution, and 15 years from now, we got the new leader.
Because if you look at some of these, some of those vendors out there who tried it, like NetSuite, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you get? You get a half-ass ERP and a half-ass CRM at the end of the day, right? But what you don't get is really the power, right? And I do believe, like back to SAP, I actually do believe that SAP, if they would put their mind to it, could actually build that. And it's not in integrations. You have to rethink the processes so that they flow continuous.
Yeah, but then vendor politics kick in and it doesn't go anywhere.
Well, that's the problem, right? It's the vendor politics at the end of the day.
some of the stuff, like you said, what actually ended up becoming the next generation for SAP sales and service, it was truly revolutionary at the time. But what the idea that you had and what you started developing and what we started putting together, it didn't come up with was executed and delivered because of the vendor politics. I mean, that's the bottom line. So I agree with Verlin on what he just said. History says none of the current leaders can make up the jump to the new model. And I think that it internally it's impossible. But then, is there a market for coming up with something new? I think that we are in a place where in the post-digital transformation world, we don't have a clear guideline of where we're going. I think that AI is a distraction, like we discussed last time. I think that data architecture hasn't changed enough to reflect the need for some new models like you're talking about. But I think that what we're going to see is once AI starts fizzling in the next 6 to 18 months, we'll have people like you come up with these ideas and put some things together that will start building the next generation of enterprise applications that will encompass both ERP, CRM, and everything else, and will begin to slowly erode and replace what's out there. But that's still going to take 3 decades.
We definitely have to get rid of all the 3-letter acronyms at the end of the day and stop separating these things, right? Because a business is a set of continuous flowing processes at the end of the day, right?
I think we should call it Bob Stack, by the way.
Don't start with that.
Legacy building, brother. Bob Stack.
But look, it's interesting. I think the other topic is still for me is around leadership, and I still have problems with and it's got to be confusing for people, right? Because you go to LinkedIn and you see all this shit that people put on there about leadership, and you just go, God, can these people stop? Right?
Yeah.
It's overloading, confusing. Look, leadership is not that complex at the end of the day. It is very simple. Just take care of your people. Stand up for your people. Be the leader, right? It's not about getting out there and going on LinkedIn and saying, rah, 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 I do this, and this is what it is to be a great leader, right? Well, I'm sorry, if you've never been a great leader, then it's pretty hard for you to define what the fuck is a great leader at the end of the day.
I agree with you.
Right. I see this stuff and it irritates me because, and then you look through the profiles of some of these people and you go, we're just, it's so much misinformation and misleading and contradictory information around how to be a leader at the end of the day. It's really simple. Know your people, take care of your people, and protect your people. That's what it means to be a leader.
You and I know a plethora, a flock of executives, right? I would say from all the executives that I know, I can count true leaders in one hand, maybe. And this is not only in the industry; that's across everywhere that I know. I mean, like Global 100, Fortune 500, whatever. So the thing is, like, all the stuff that I see in LinkedIn is like, how do you become an executive so you too can make all this money while you sleep doing nothing? But it doesn't talk anything about leadership. So the thing is, like, I agree with you. Leadership. I don't think that leadership is properly defined. Where Berlin sit over there, vision, execution, and take care of the people. Yeah, that's one way to get to leadership. But then there's a lot of other things that are not easily definable that are part of being a leader. You did not become a leader across 5 of the 6 leading software vendors of the last 30 years by just taking care of your people. There was more to it than that. There's fighting the political battles.
It's like you have, and I think Verlin actually said it. Like, it's about, you have to have a vision, and you have to have conviction around that vision, and people will follow you if they know you're convicted to it. They will follow you, and they will give their 110% every day in and day out, right? And it's about, you have to give people a purpose. You have to give them a reason, right? And it's not just about being a leader or a manager at work, right? You have to know your people. You have to know the whole person at the end of the day. What affects them outside of the office, right? Not just inside the office, right? And people don't talk about that enough, right? They say, oh, some of these terms they use just make me want to puke sometimes when I read some of that stuff on LinkedIn, right? It's like, and unfortunately, especially when it's people that I've had the opportunity of meeting over the years, and I just go, that's not going to happen, right? But look, I do think leadership is still critical, and I think as we go into this age of AI, I think it's even more critical that we have strong leaders who can stand up and do the right thing and speak up when they see that things are not going the way they should be going, right?
But this is the thing. You and I had different skills. You're a great leader. I would never be a great leader. But
I'm just a simple country boy at the end of the day.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
I am.
No. But sure, let's go with it. You're a simple country boy, but you became a great leader. I'm a simple city boy that became a good assistant to the leader. We have different skills. But at the end of the day, whether the vision is yours or like you get somebody like me to help or whatever, I believe that the great vision is the number one step to leadership. Without it, you can never do anything. And I look, people are something that eludes me. I don't have the skills to deal with people well enough, but I have the skills to do that.
You're definitely not a people person, that's for sure.
I remember that conversation. Yeah, I think the conversation was like, dude, you're not a team player. You're not a people person. What the fuck? And I said, yeah, but there's nothing in there. I told you that before I came here. So it was a good conversation. But the thing is, like, I think that leadership is more than just being able to manage the people. I think that that's one part of it. But truly, honestly, being able to, what is it? The Discipline of Market Leaders, the book that talks about what was it? Customer intimacy,
that's right.
Operational excellency, and product excellence and operational optimization operations or whatever. Are they great in operations? Are they great in other things, in product? I don't do well in people. You need to have all three to be able to become a leader at that level. You need to be able to recognize your shortcomings and
and by the way, you need to be able to kick someone in the ass when they need it, and really be crystal clear about, look, you need to get your act together, or you're not going to be here, right? And I think people are afraid to do that in this day and age. I really think people are afraid to have those deep conversations, right, with the people that work. It's really I think we've come to a point where the world is just everybody's afraid to say the things, and so look, I know we're running out of time, and the last thing I want to say is sort of a it's more of a political thing than anything, but the anti-Semitism has to freaking stop.
Yeah.
This is absolutely ridiculous what is happening in this day and age. And it's just, I'm my heart breaks, having been a soldier for 22 years and spent a lot of my time in counterterrorism and anti-terrorism and in counter-espionage. What the U.S. did by abstaining from the vote in the UN was just it's they legitimized the terrorist organization is what they did. And look, my heart bleeds for people in look, in Gaza. Look, nobody likes to see children and everything. Look, war is hell, and nobody likes to see people getting killed. But at the same time, the reality is, if we don't put an end to organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah, and the Western world can say what they want, this is not an Israeli fight. This is a world fight. Because, would anybody what would the U.S. have done if the United Nations had said after 9/11, oh, you guys need to put a ceasefire in Afghanistan? No, you're not going to go after those terrorists. Do you think we would have stopped? No, we wouldn't have. We would have kept going because it was the right thing to do. And Danny, I think was right. Like, you talk about leadership. We are lacking leadership in our own freaking country, and not just our country, other countries. And I just think, like it pains me to see people suffering in Gaza. I hate it, right? But at the same time, the reality is, if we don't put an end to these terrorist organizations now, it's never going to end. And we need to do that. And with that, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks for listening to my ranting, to Esteban's ranting. We appreciate it. Esteban, if you need a place to stay, I always got extra room.
Yeah, I think you gave you a place up here in the States, right? You don't have anything left here.
I don't have anything left in the U.S. anymore. So,
yeah, but otherwise I would have taken you there. But no, I'm okay. I'm going to turn around and go back home since the mountain is still closed. I was just checking.
Well, drive safe and take care. And with that, everyone, thanks a lot. Take care.
Thank you.